Hi everyone and welcome to this very special edition of CityVision. I'm Mark Murray. You know, one of the best things about doing a show like this is that we get to talk about the good things going on in Hamilton. And very recently I had the opportunity to tour a development project right in downtown that's pretty impressive in its scope. Take a look. Hi, we're here in the Mercantile building and with me today is Jason Snyder. He's the site superintendent for Kuhn Restoration. And Mike Dingledine, he's the Vice President of Architecture for SHP Leading Design. Thanks for being here, gentlemen.
Sure.
Jason, I'm going to throw you the first question to you. How old are these buildings?
We actually have 3 buildings. Mike's space is 140 years old. It's built in 1862. This building here is a little newer in that it's right around the turn of the century, 1900, and this building, same thing. Right about
All right. Well, when was this project conceived, and I guess more importantly, when did construction begin?
Well, it was conceived about 5 years ago. Construction started roughly a year and 3 months ago.
Okay, and I know there was scaffolding in the front for quite some time. People continually ask, why is the project taking so long? And I know you've got an explanation for that.
Well, this project has received state and federal tax credits, which means we applied for them when we purchased the property. Typically, all the paperwork takes around 2 to 3 years for it to be accepted. We're not allowed to start any facet of this job until those tax credits are in place. If we do, we aren't eligible for the tax credits.
Okay, and I know from the outside it looks certainly like 3 distinct buildings. Is it fair to say that you're trying to turn this into one complex?
Yes, yes.
What's that going to include?
We're going to have 31 residential apartments and 3 commercial spaces.
Okay. Now, I know SHP Leading Design is the first tenant, of course. They've got 2,700 square feet of space?
Correct.
Thereabouts. How much space is actually in the buildings?
65,000 square feet.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, Mike, I'm going to turn to you. What can you tell me about the role SHP Leading Design has played in this project?
Well, ostensibly, we looking for space downtown to relocate our office. We wanted to be back downtown where we started the firm. And we sat across the street one day and looked at these buildings and thought, you know, there's an opportunity to have not just downtown space, but storefront, high street level space. And so we contacted the developers and we started talking, and one thing led to another, and we were able to execute a plan to move in here as the first tenant.
Now, I know the space you're in now was in pretty bad shape before the restoration. What can you tell us about that?
Like much of the building, they were in terrible condition. They needed to be completely renovated, but the tool that makes this financially possible is the historic tax credits. So we had to decide right at the beginning that we were able to work within the historic tax credit requirements and then still do a new, modern, and what we like to call a green, sustainable space as well.
Okay, because that leads to my next question. For a building as old as this, your space has some distinctly modern conveniences. Can you tell us about those?
Something we promote as an architect, and most architects promote today, is sustainable design. And so we have lots of new technologies like daylight sensors in our space, occupancy sensors. We have a light shelf that transmits daylight from our front facade all the way back to the back of our space. We have all kinds of technologies that make our space green, and in fact we're going for LEED Gold certification on our space.
Wow. Well, Jason, to you, what can you tell me about the partnership between Kuhn Restoration and the City of Hamilton?
I'd say it's been a very good relationship to date. The building department's been excellent to work with. One of the challenges we had was SHP needed to be in a rather quick fashion, and the city worked very well with us, building department especially. We kind of bent the rules a little, started a little early, but you know, there was some fines, but at the same time they worked with us and allowed us to get Mike in a space in the time he needed.
Well, that's good to hear. So can we have a tour?
Certainly.
All right, great. We're behind SHP Leading Design space right now, and Jason, what can you tell us about this space?
This is phase 1. We have 5 live-work apartments back here, ranging from 1,200 to 1,500 square feet. They're multi-level. The basement is, I guess, the first floor of these spaces, and this actual first floor is their second floor. Every apartment has a staircase. They will have all the appliances with laundry, stacked washer, dryer. we are limited back here on natural light. So some of the features that we've added are 4 skylights. These holes here in the floor are allowing the light to transmit into the basement. And then you can see in the framing here some of the windows that have been framed in across the front of these apartments, also trying to get that natural light into these spaces, make it feel a little more cozy for the tenants.
Now, what about the ceiling tile? I see the old stamped ceiling. Is any of that saved?
Yes, and that unit only back here, unfortunately. That's part of our historical requirements. Some of the fabric we need to retain. Other things that we have to salvage back here are the plaster walls. Just the ones you see. These walls obviously will be drywalled along with the ceilings that don't have the tin on them.
Okay. Now, you know, I can't help but notice from up here, I look down, and you say that this basement here is going to be their first floor.
Correct.
All the subway tile, what was down here way back when?
Well, at one point in time, this was a 2-lane bowling alley. And
a 2-lane bowling alley?
Correct.
All right.
It was actually here when we took over the building and started the construction. We had to remove the old wood floor.
The lanes, the mechanism, everything was still here?
Well, no, the mechanism was missing, but the lanes were still here.
And what do you think that comes from? I know what Mike told us the other day. What?
Oh, with the speakeasies, and that's definitely part of this building's history.
Used to do some drinking down here, I'm sure. Oh, this is neat. All right. Well, anything else about this space in particular before we move on?
Just some of the details. All the apartments will have granite countertops along with the vanities and the bathrooms. The building will be 100% sprinkled along with a fire alarm. And they're very sizable units. And I don't know if I told you, but the fireplaces will be in here also in each unit. But just an all-around little above average apartment, I'd have to say.
Sure. Well, great. Well, where to next?
How about the 2nd and 3rd floor, above SHP?
Okay. All right, so now we're on the 2nd floor. This is above SHP?
Correct.
All right. And what's planned for up here?
We'll have 2 units up here, basically right and left side of the space. You can see these windows. It's a little deceiving out front. I mentioned earlier the building's 65,000 square feet. From the street, you only see 3 stories, and it does not look that large. The building's 205 feet deep, roughly 100 foot wide, and these windows measure 9 feet tall and 4 feet wide. So you'll have a lot of natural light in these spaces up here.
Wow.
And very tall ceilings. So real nice amenities that you can't get in new construction.
Now, the windows, do you retain the windows, or are those replaced?
We do. We will salvage these windows. We are doing that. If you see behind you, the windows that are boarded up. We do that work ourselves. They're back at our shop. We've got some guys back there that specialize in restoring the sashes and the frames, and that's another part of the historical tax credits.
Now, I understand out back here, that's the party deck?
Yes.
It will be the party deck?
It will be the party deck.
All right, let's take a look. So now we're supposed to have a party deck back here. I see some posts.
Correct. Yes, the 3 red posts will support the party deck. There will be 2 doorways cut through the masonry wall here, and in between those doorways there'll be a full kitchen and a restroom along with a trash chute. And all the tenants in the building will have the option of using that deck. They'll also be able to reserve that on weekends so they can have parties catered in. The kitchen and the restroom and everything's already there for them. They'll be able to keep all their guests out here enjoying the downtown atmosphere and not have to go traipsing through the building, or if they're not quite able to, house all 50, 60 guests, they'll be able to do that outside here.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. Where to now?
We can go to the 3rd floor.
So up here on the 3rd floor, do you have to do anything in particular? I see, the wallpaper. I mean, does that just come down?
Yes, it gets stripped, and then it'll expose any kind of flaws with the plaster that we have, and those walls will get restored also, along with the ceilings. One of the unique features about these 2 spaces is we have a 19-foot tall ceiling in here. These 2 units will be 2-bedroom units. there'll be a mezzanine built from wall to wall and add another full bath and another bedroom. So these units will be 2 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, along with your living room, kitchen, and all the amenities the other ones have. Just a little more space and a loft style feel to them.
Now, I know throughout we've got these radiators, these old radiators everywhere, and some of them have some just amazing scroll work on them. Is there a requirement to retain those as well?
No, all the utilities in the building will be all brought up to code and date. There'll be forced air systems, all new electric panels, and all your teledata and communication needs that you need.
Right.
Just in a 140-year-old building.
Wow. It's amazing. It really is. Okay, so we are going to go to...
Oh, do you want to see the skylight?
This would be what, the middle of the buildings, basically, from what people can see from the outside.
Correct.
And I'm just amazed at how wide these boards are. What can you tell us about this?
Well, there's no doubt these buildings were built very well back in the day. The joists measure 2 inches, anywhere from 16 inches to 18 inches. They're all on 1-foot centers.
And that's one wide board from...
Correct.
Is it fair to say you can't even get boards this wide anymore? Unless
not without paying a premium.
Okay.
It's old growth timber. It had really high structural capability. These buildings are much heavier duty than even concrete and steel buildings of today are, given the way they designed them with those heavy beams.
What we do with a lot of these now, you'll see as we walk around, we actually have a pile right here. Some of these, I'd mentioned before we were here, we started about a year ago, and people don't recognize that we're a small crew. We spend 4 to 6 months to a year in here tackling all the structural repairs, the roof repairs, getting the building structurally sound and weather tight. Some of the joists that are saved from the demolition or the structural repairs, we then reuse those for our windows. Like Mike said, with it being a slow growth lumber, they're very well suited for window reconstruction and restoration. So we try to reuse as much as we possibly can here.
Amazing. And you know, I look around and I see some of these light fixtures, these ornate light fixtures up here are absolutely amazing. And the scroll work on the railing coming up the stairwell. The stairwell will be retained. Now the light fixtures we don't. You can have them reworked, but a lot of times it's just not feasible for the project. So these fixtures unfortunately won't be salvaged. Okay, and I noticed on the railing too, it looks like it was all covered up at one point.
Correct. We will expose that, restore that, and it will be put back to its glamour from 100 years ago.
All right, and speaking of glamour, we've got this skylight here that is absolutely amazing. Was this all covered up? I mean, it looks... I look at the floor and I see an octagonal cutout that was obviously filled in. This must have gone from the basement all the way up.
It stops on the first floor, but yes, it goes through all 3 floors. I believe Mike has a little more history on this skylight than I do.
Well, just being a first-class department store, this lit the whole store. This created daylighting, which gave a premium to the products that were in the store. This find several years ago really is the reason this building's still here. Preservationists like Sherry Corbett toured this building and urged the city to recognize how many extant assets were still in this building. And this is a 30-foot diameter cast iron skylight, which is all still up there. It's covered with tar. You can't see the daylight yet, but it's all going to be restored, and this building will open all the way down to the ground floor with this massive skylight, much like a high-end hotel. And so it's going to be an amazing feature of this building. It's going to be a major draw, and architecturally, it's a gem. And so you just don't want to let these things go, and it's a great
It seems
find.
amazing at all that it's even been preserved to this extent. I understand the buildings were slated for demolition?
Yes. The owner of the buildings was looking just to demolish them because it looked like the structural disrepair was going to be something that was going to become a liability. But when the preservationists saw what was still here and how heavy a construction this building was, they urged the city to do something about it, and in fact the city responded and they bought these buildings looking for a match with a developer who knew how to deal with historic tax credits, because frankly without historic tax credits this building wouldn't have a feasible way to be recovered, but with them it's going to be a real project.
Again, I just have to say this is absolutely amazing. All right, and I understand we've got a big old safe here somewhere.
It's one more floor down.
All right, can we check that out? We're on the second floor now of the building furthest west.
Correct. 228 is the address for all three buildings. The commercial spaces will retain the original addresses 228, 232, and 236. Mike is 236. But all the suites will be 228, suite 115, 116, 117.
And what's the idea of what went on in here that they would have a safe even this large?
Well, at some point in time, this part of the building was a bank, all three floors. The third floor has a concrete floor. It's the only concrete floor in the building.
On the third floor?
On the third floor.
Wow.
And this safe is here on the second floor, and we believe your tellers and street traffic would have come in on the first floor. The behind-the-scenes banking was second and third floors.
Okay, and then the plans for this space?
Again, apartments, and this safe will actually be in one of the suites.
Really?
Yes. We will restore the door. It will function and move smoothly just like it did back then.
And this is a Mosler safe, a name that most people in Hamilton would know?
Correct.
All right, very good.
In fact, 3 different banks were tenants here. First Financial Bank was here at one point, Second National Bank was here at one point, and Dime Savings Bank were all different tenants in this building over the 140 years it's been here.
Wow. And Jason, what about, you said something about balconies.
Correct. All the suites will have their own balcony on all levels, except for the original first 5 we showed you. They were not able to give them a balcony, but the other 22 suites will have balconies.
And just for perspective, this is the portion that overlooks the alleyway. Now, the other day when we were together, you told me about how you replace these ceiling panels.
Correct.
I mean, obviously, you just can't go buy these anymore.
No, we are usually able to salvage anywhere from 50 to 75% of this. Some of the parts of the building where the ceiling was damaged too much, we remove that. We salvage what is still good, and then the areas where we retain the ceiling, we bring those panels in and infill where need be. When we do need to purchase them, there are very few companies that will still produce them for us, but we send them a panel, they make a mold, and they stamp out however many we need. The temporary steps where we're at, this was a boiler room. There were masonry walls up in a square here, so that exit was heavily concealed. There weren't a lot of people willing to venture into one of those old boiler rooms back in the day, so those who knew about it knew where to go in case there was an issue.
I don't know, maybe illegal gambling, maybe some drinking possibly?
No doubt, they needed a second way out. It goes under the alley and connects into the Wilkes building, the 222 High Street.
You can see we started filling the basement. That's going to be the elevation. Actually, what you see there is finished level, finished grade. So we've got a ways to go. We've got a lot of fill we need to bring in here.
And the elevator is?
Right there. That will access all 4 levels, basement included. In this basement here, the plan is to have a large fitness center right about where we're standing. There are 2 more live-work units to the back of the building here. And we have storage slated for the front half of the building underneath the 3 commercial spaces.
So all the tenants will have storage down here?
Correct.
Or the potential for it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have to admit, it's a little hard to visualize a fitness center down here right now, but I have no doubt that at some point you guys are going to be able to pull this off. This is just fantastic. Okay, well here we are out in front, in front of the nice finished space for SHP Leading Design. And I certainly want to thank Mike Dingledine. Mike, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Jason, thanks for the tour. Really appreciate it.
Stop back.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and we plan on doing a follow-up when that project is much further along. And until then, if you've got something you'd like to see on CityVision, please write me. And of course, I do want to thank the good folks at TV Hamilton for this particular show. They did a lot of work in getting it put together. And remember, we want to thank you for watching TV Hamilton, hometown television with a personal touch. And until next time, from all of us at CityVision, thanks for watching.